Well, hello. This is Brother DeWayne Crumley from Friendship Baptist Church in Center Star, Alabama. Just wanted to share with you a little bit today uh, that some thoughts that I know everybody deals with, and it's a word called trust. I remember when my children were younger that I had to pick one up from school, and I had given him strict orders on where I would be and where he was to meet me. And so when I get there on the appointed time, I'm in line and I'm waiting for him to come out. And as I'm sitting there, I don't see him anywhere. And I wait and I wait and I wait. And you know, as a dad, sometimes we kind of get scared, do we not? And so I waited, and no kids are left coming out of the building. It's in fact, the playgrounds are empty, the streets are empty, and I'm still sitting there. And I thought, now what am I going to do? So I started my truck up and I drove around to the other corner of the school, and I looked on the back side of the school, and there he was. He was standing back there. And so I blew the horn and waved my hands and got his attention. And I said, well, what are you doing? And I tried, of course, to sound unconcerned, that I wasn't worried at all, that I knew he was okay. And he said, well, I'm where I thought I was supposed to be, and I was waiting on you. And then I got to share with him that I was trustworthy, that he could count on me to be there. He might not see me, but I'll be there. Why? Because I loved him. And I didn't tell him that I was struggling with trust as well, because I didn't know where he was. And so as time went on, I thought about that, and I thought, God may have the same issue with us. We may not know to trust him like my child didn't know to trust me at that time. How many times has God told us to fear not? How many times has God told us that he is trustworthy? And do we trust him? So as I think about that, I thought about my life and my trust with God. And as I look back now, being 63 years old, I look back and I realize that trust doesn't grow in the absence of uncertainty. Trust does not grow in times when I don't see him. Trust grows when I realize how much he loves me and that he is trustworthy. My son now knows that I love him immensely and that I am trustworthy. And as long as Dad is able to get there, Dad's going to be there. And Dad's going to keep his word. And so how does that apply to our lives? Well, God is always able to get there. And God is always able to keep his word. So what does his word say? Well, his word says that he loves us, that he never leave us, and he'll never forsake us. So can we trust him? Yes, we can. But here's the question, do we trust him? And in Galatians, it says this about God. It says, the one who called you is faithful, and he will do what he has promised. See, he's promised us a home in heaven, and we love to think about that. But he's also promised to take care of us here in this life. He's promised us to have life and to have it more abundant. And most of the times we think of stuff when we think of that, but I don't think that's what God was talking about. Because we all have plenty of stuff. And stuff is just fleeting. It's not really important. What God was talking about is he's going to give us more of him. And as I think about that, the Apostle Paul said, he must decrease and God must increase. And that should be our prayers every day, that we get closer to God so we know that he is trustworthy. So we know that he is one who loves us. And see, our confidence in God should be rooted in our love for God and in our understanding of who he was and who he is. See, my son trusts me now because I have one that is 40 and one that's 41. They've seen me for 40 and 41 years and know my heart. See, I believe we as Christians, we don't actually know the heart of God because we don't want to spend time with him. because we don't get in his word, because we don't talk to him in prayer, or when we do talk to him, we're talking too much about stuff and not about what's important, and that is our relationship with him. So as we think about God and being trustworthy, the more you realize that he's trustworthy, the bolder you will be. It's kind of like the little story I heard about a house was on fire, and everybody made it out of the house except one little boy, about 8 years old. And he made it to the window on the second floor, and his mom and dad and the fireman were there, and his daddy was hollering, "Jump, I got you." And the little boy said, "Dad, I can't see you for the smoke." And the dad said, "Son, it doesn't matter if you can see me, but I can see you. So jump and I will catch you." Well, see, we may not see God. We may not even feel God at that time, but God sees us. And he wants us to trust him. He wants us to have enough trust in him that when the storms of life hit, we know he is faithful. We can stand on his promises. We can go to the Bible and we can look up the promises of God and know that they are faithful and know that they are true. So I want to encourage you. Get in the Bible. Google it if you have to, but look up the promises of God. Write them down. Put a question mark out beside them and say, "God, does this really apply to me?" Put a question mark out beside and say, "God, I don't know if this is true. Will you show me?" See, God will answer prayers like that because he is a loving God. He wants us to know that he is trustworthy. And in the world we're living today, everybody's scared. Everybody's afraid. We got the pandemic. We've got all this garbage on the news today. We've got all this hate, and the devil is having a heyday. So we as Christians need to know that God is trustworthy. We need to know and believe that he is trustworthy and walk tall in times like these so we can show the world that, hey, God loves us and I have nothing to fear. Just like the Apostle Paul said, "For me to live is Christ, but to die is gain." And what he meant by that is, hey, as long as I'm alive, I'm living for Christ no matter what happens to me. No matter if I'm shipwrecked, no matter if I'm broken, no matter if I'm beaten up, no matter if I'm stoned, I'm going to live for Christ. But however, when God gets ready for me to die, then I gain, I win, because I get to go home to be with him. So I encourage you today to show your family and show the world that God is trustworthy and that you trust him. That it's not just words out of your mouth, but it's something you believe. And it's something that you stand on every day. That no matter what happens, God, I know you are faithful. Because God is in your character, and your character cannot change. So I'd like to thank you for listening to this today. I'd like to encourage you to pray for our little church by the road, Friendship Baptist Church. We're right on 72, right there in Center Star. And we are a different church. We are a church who loves God and loves each other. And we'd like a chance to show you how different we are. We lift up Jesus. We don't lift up people. We don't lift up the church. We lift up the name of Christ. We'd love to hear from you. We get calls all the time. I get texts and emails, people listening to our program. And we thank you for that. But please remember to pray for our little church by the road. And until the next time, just remember that God loves you and he wants you to trust him.